I hear it more often than you might expect. A child says something and it just doesn't quite sound like them. Or they repeat a phrase they've clearly heard somewhere, and when you gently ask what it means, they can't really explain it. And as a parent, you pause for a moment and think, where did that even come from? Parenting today can feel loud, fast, and sometimes a little confusing. But here's what I want you to know right from the start. Even in all that noise, your child can learn how to slow down, notice, and choose well. And you are the one who helps build that in them. Hi, friend. I'm the Nurture Navigator, a child development professional and behavior specialist, and this is Little Feet Big Guidance. I help parents make sense of what's really happening in their child's mind and heart, especially in those moments when behavior, reactions, or sudden outbursts leave you wondering what's going on underneath. I've spent years walking alongside young children and families in homes, in everyday routines, and in the real, unfiltered moments where childhood actually unfolds. That experience has given me a clear first-hand understanding of how children grow, how their behavior reflects what they're experiencing, and how much the environment around them shapes who they are becoming. What I share here is grounded in research, shaped by real-life experiences, and guided by a foundation of faith and love. Are you ready? Let's go. You know those moments so well, don't you? Those moments with your child when something just makes you pause for a second. Maybe they say something that doesn't quite sound like them, or they repeat something they've heard over and over. I see this often in my work, especially with 3 to 5-year-olds. They'll repeat phrases, copy behaviors, or say something they've clearly picked up from the world around them. And sometimes it sounds surprisingly grown, or just a little out of place for their age. And when I gently ask, what does that mean? They pause, they look at me, and you can feel it in the moment. They don't know. And over the years, I've seen that same pattern continue with older children too. It doesn't suddenly appear later, it starts here. And that matters more than we often realize. And here's what's important to understand. Your child's not just hearing the world, they are absorbing it. But here's where this really matters. Absorbing is not the same as understanding. Children can take in words, behaviors, and experiences long before they have the ability to process them. So, things come out without being fully understood. That's not defiance, that's development. There's a skill children need that doesn't simply appear on its own. I call it the pause. That moment where a child doesn't just react, but stops long enough to notice what's happening inside. And in the world we're raising children in today, everything is working against that. Speed, noise, constant input. So naturally, children begin to move quickly too. But here's the truth. Speed trains reaction. Slowness trains wisdom. And a child who never learns the pause doesn't have the space needed for truth to settle in. And this is where something even deeper begins to form. That small hesitation, that quiet feeling in the body, that's what I call the body signal. And stay with me here because this connects directly to your child's ability to make wise choices. The body often notices before the mind understands. So, before a child can explain something, before they can reason through it, their body already feels it. A tightening, a pause, a sense that something isn't quite right. Children don't need to be taught to have this signal. They need to be guided to notice it and learn to trust it. Even before your child can speak, this is already forming. Their nervous system is constantly taking in the world around them. Your tone, your pace, your presence. And by the time they reach those 3 to 5 years, the age I spend most of my time working in, you're already beginning to see patterns. How quickly they respond, whether they pause, how they move through situations. And those patterns didn't start in that moment. They've been forming all along. Gabor Maté speaks about how children don't just learn from what we say, but from the emotional environment we create, right? So, when you slow down, when you soften your voice, when you stay present, you're not just helping in that moment. You're shaping how their brain learns to process the world. You're building the foundation for the pause. As your child moves into those early preschool years, especially in that 3 to 5 range, something new begins to emerge. They start saying, no. And I know that can feel like a lot some days, but that no is not just defiance. It's awareness that's starting to bloom. It's your child recognizing something in me is responding to this. And this is where your role becomes so important, parents. We don't ignore that no, and we don't let it lead everything either. Balance. We honor it and we shape it. Because children don't just need freedom of expression, they need guided expression. Marshall Rosenberg reminds us that children learn how to communicate and set boundaries through experience. So when you say, I hear you, you don't want that, you are teaching them their voice matters. And when you gently guide what comes next, you are teaching them how to use that voice with wisdom. And this becomes especially important as children begin to spend more time with peers. This is something I see very clearly in the 3 to 5 age range. This is often the first time children are consistently around other children. And suddenly, what has been forming internally becomes visible externally. You might see your child follow quickly, repeat something another child says, jump into a situation without stopping, and you might find yourself wondering, did they even want to do that? And that question matters because it's not just about behavior. It's about whether there was space inside your child to notice before they acted. Because a child who hasn't practiced the pause doesn't suddenly develop it in a group setting. They move faster, they follow quicker, not because they want to do something wrong, but because there isn't space between input and action. And this is the part that often gets missed. Discernment is not built in the moment of pressure. It's built in the moments before. So that when pressure comes, there's a pause. And in that pause, the body signal speaks. I'm not sure about this. And that pause is where protection lives. As children grow beyond those early years into 6, 7, and beyond, what was practiced early begins to show more clearly. And over time, I've seen how those early patterns either strengthen or become harder to shift. Children who have practiced noticing begin to carry that with them. They question, they pause, they choose more intentionally, all wonderful things. And children who haven't often move quickly without realizing why. And this brings us back to something we talked about last week. Because all of this, pausing, noticing, reflecting, requires space. And this matters even in the early years. Because when 3 to 5-year-olds are consistently exposed to fast-paced input, especially through screens, their brain begins to expect that speed before they fully developed the ability to slow down. So, when something happens in real life that requires noticing, there isn't a natural pause. There's movement, quick, automatic movement. And over time, that can create confusion. Because without the pause, truth doesn't have time to stand. What is repeated becomes what's natural, what's normalized, and what is rushed is rarely understood. Ellen G. White wrote that the habits and influences of early life shape the direction of a person's character. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. Discernment is not something we rush into children. It's something that grows when they are given time to notice. And this is where I want to gently bring us back to something important. Children are always watching us. Not just what we say, but how we move through the world, how quickly we respond, whether we pause, whether we listen to our own sense of something doesn't feel right. Because children don't learn discernment from instruction alone, they learn it by living alongside someone who practices it. So when you pause, when you take a moment before responding, when you say out loud, I'm not sure about that, you're showing them what it looks like to notice. And that matters more than we often realize. And here's something I want every parent to hold on to. If you're listening and thinking, we haven't really practiced this pause or awareness before, my child doesn't seem to notice or reflect. Take a deep breath. You are not starting from zero. Every moment you've spent with your child comforting them, guiding them, correcting them, or just being present has quietly been connecting the dots in their brain. Even if it hasn't looked like structured teaching, they have been absorbing it all. They've been watching, feeling, and learning from you in ways that are far more profound than you may realize. Gabor Maté reminds us that children are incredibly sensitive to the adults around them. The rhythms you set, the presence you offer, the pauses you model, all of this shapes how they learn to notice, feel, and respond. And the amazing thing is that this foundation is already there. It just hasn't been intentionally strengthened yet. Even if your child hasn't shown signs of pause or reflection before, the capacity is inside them. And here's what's so beautiful. You can nurture it at any time. Something as simple as pausing together, noticing a feeling, and putting words to it. I see your body feels tight. What do you notice? This plants seeds that grow over time. The shift doesn't need to be dramatic either, parents. It doesn't require perfect timing or flawless words. What matters is that you are showing them how to slow down, how to notice, and how to connect with what's true inside themselves. And when you do, something remarkable happens. They begin to recognize what feels right, what doesn't, and how to respond thoughtfully. They start to carry a sense of discernment even if it hasn't been explicitly practiced before. That internal compass, the one that helps them make wise choices and feel safe in the world, is already quietly forming. And you have the power to strengthen it with simple, loving attention. So take heart. Even now, even if you haven't done this intentionally before, change can happen. The seeds are already there, and every gentle, aware moment with your child gives those seeds sunlight, because a child doesn't need a perfect parent to grow in wisdom. They need a present one. And we made it to our challenge of the week, parents. This week, choose one moment each day to slow down with your child. And when something comes up, pause and ask, what did that feel like? And just listen. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to explain it right away. Just notice together. Parents, the world our children are growing up in is fast, but children don't need more speed. They need guidance, they need presence, they need someone who helps them slow down long enough to notice what's true. And that someone is you. Last week we talked about how screens shape attention. This week, we're beginning to rebuild something deeper. And if this episode stirred something in your heart and you're wondering how to create more of this in your home, I'm currently offering a free 15-minute session where we can talk through your child, your family rhythm, and simple ways to build more presence, awareness, and discernment, even pulling away from that screen time. You can find that link in the show notes or the comments below. Childhood was never meant to be rushed through. It was meant to be noticed, experienced, and gently guided, one small moment at a time. Before we go, I just want to say thank you to those who have subscribed, shared this podcast, or passed it along to another parent. It truly means more than you know. These conversations are small, but they ripple into homes, into relationships, into the way children grow. And if you haven't yet, you're always welcome to subscribe so you don't miss what's ahead. Join the parenting tribe, the nurtured parenting tribe. And if something here stayed with you today, sharing with another parent might be exactly what they needed to hear. Thank you for showing up for your children the way you do. It matters more than you see right now.